Hello and welcome. You're watching Head to Head. I'm Carrie Oderman with UATV. Justin Trudeau has won a second term as Canada's Prime Minister after the country's federal election. But his narrow victory means he will lead a minority government that will be forced to depend on another party to govern. To talk more about the current political situation in Canada and how this election could change Canada-Ukraine relations, we're joined today in studio by Andriy Veselovskyi, head of the Center for International Studies of the Diplomatic Academy of Ukraine. He's also a former ambassador. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
This has been considered one of the ugliest campaigns in Canadian history. From people looking in from the outside, it didn't seem that unsettling. What's your takeaway from this point?
Well, with every new campaign, we are talking about the ugliest and the worst and the dirtiest, etc. Well, in fact, the effect of hate speeches and disinformation in the world is omnipresent, and Canada is not immune to that. But from the other point of view, from the, say, European perspective, Canadian campaign was quite clean and quite transparent. So we have to learn a lot from Canadians.
There are the Liberals, Justin Trudeau's party, gained 156 seats. They were 14 short of the 170 needed for a majority. The Conservatives have 122 seats. Trudeau is going to have to make a coalition. What are his options?
The options are quite clear. The third party, which is the fourth party, which is NDP, New Democratic Party, before the elections and during the elections, expressed their readiness, if not willingness, to join the Liberals, not the victors, but the Liberals. And the Liberals were, in some points of their program, quite close to those of NDP. So I presume there will be not a coalition as such in European terms, but sort of cooperation and mutual support between Liberals and NDP, if nothing extraordinary occurs.
Compared to their southern neighbours, Canada is very progressive when it comes to environmental issues. Trudeau campaigned on some of these aspects. What does it look like for Jasmeet Singh's Green Party? Will they include him in any of the new policies?
Green Party has only 3 seats first. Second, Green Party does not articulate itself clearly enough because, first of all, Liberals have all means to propose their own green program. And by the way, along the line of this program, Trudeau won 4 years ago and continued to win during these elections. And the biggest support for Trudeau came from the so-called green provinces, Atlantic provinces and Ontario. So I don't see a good perspective for Greens. Of course, they can join the most green initiatives of a new Trudeau government, but it wouldn't change much for them.
Canada has a large Ukrainian diaspora. 3.5% of the voters claim to be of Ukrainian origin. How do Ukrainian Canadians vote?
It's an interesting issue. Traditionally, Ukrainian Canadians vote mostly for the Conservatives. The explanation is simple. In the years of the, say, Soviet Union, there were Conservatives who proclaimed the policy of multiculturalism and then supported the so-called oppressed nations within the Soviet Union. I mean, Ukraine was the first among them. So this tradition changed a little bit during last decades because Liberals shifted a little bit from their, say, elusive international policy. There was no policy in international relations, but just slogans that we have to support freedom and all which is good in the world. But in the last, say, 10 years, liberals became more vocal in questions concerning Eastern Europe, Eastern Central Europe, European affairs in general, and they came to understand that Ukraine is important a country. Not only Ukrainian Canadians as voters are important, but Ukraine is important. For Canada, Ukraine may be very important a country in Europe. And that is why they changed the narrative. And that is why now this unilateral support of Ukrainian Canadians to the Conservatives does not exist anymore. Let us say it is geographical more. In the so-called prairies provinces, mostly Alberta and Saskatchewan, voters support Conservatives, and Ukrainians live mostly there.
Well, Trudeau did get elected, and he will be the Prime Minister. Last year, $56 million were brought to Ukraine from Canada in the form of investments and aid. Can Ukrainians expect this type of support to continue, not only in terms of aid, but also in military support?
I think yes. I think that there are strong arguments for that. Let me quote a little bit from my piece of paper. The ruling body of Ukrainian Canadians in Canada is Canadian-Ukrainian Congress. So this Congress seats every the body sits every 3 years, and the next gathering happens in a week time. So what are the slogans of this important and influential body? First point: strengthen Ukraine in defense and security matters. This is a call to the government, the new government, whatever government. Second, support democratic reforms in Ukraine. And only third is an internal Canadian point about more attention or more support to Canadian seniors as such. And only fourth is support Ukrainian Canadian culture in Canada. So it means that this large and very active group, when we say 3.4% of voters, we forget the activity of these voters. They are united in their calls, and that is why they are more influential as such. So it means that this group, but not only that, other national groups from Eastern Europe, Polish, Romanian, Czechs, Slovaks, Slovenians, and others, Baltic states, also support these Ukrainian slogans, because they have same kind of slogans concerning the situation in Central Eastern Europe, concerning the threat from Russian Federation to the to this part of the world and to democracy of Ukraine.
I'd like to say that we're going to shift away from Ukraine-Canadian relations and talk about Canadian-U.S. relations, but the United States also plays a very pivotal part in the entire environment right now. Trudeau and Donald Trump didn't have the best start. Although Trump has congratulated Trudeau, I think in the form of a tweet, saying that he'll do a good job and Canada's well served. How could their cautious relationship with each other affect things on the world stage?
Important question. You know, the trade between these two countries is the biggest one in the world. Daily trade is $1.2 billion. $1.2 billion per day. So the influence of the United States on Canada is immense. And at the beginning, 4 years ago, when Trudeau was elected for the first time, there was some caution. What would Canada feel as sort of pressure from America, from this new American president, who does not share ecological, scientific, humanitarian approaches of Canadian government. But it didn't happen. In spite of some real pressure in trade, the relations remained quite good and quite intensive. Why? Because of the skills of Trudeau. To my knowledge, he hired a group of good interlocutors who worked with President Trump and his entourage. Among them, one former conservative prime minister. I don't name him, but everybody in Canada knows whom I'm talking about. And it made necessary impact on Trump administration. Second moment, in all their might, United States cannot quarrel with all the world. Well, China is enough, Europe is enough, who else? Mexico is enough. Okay, let's live well with Canada at least. So it so happened. I don't think that it will change much in the nearest future, especially taking into account that tough times come to the administration of Donald Trump because of the future elections, the approach. They don't need more problems abroad. They need some peace. Ukraine is quite big, how to say, big an elephant. A small elephant, Ukraine, becomes bigger and bigger in Trump's room. So I think that the relations between these two northern neighbors will remain calm, peaceful, and productive.
Thank you very much for your comments today.
Not at all. You're welcome.
That was Andriy Veselovskyi, the head of the Center for International Studies of the Diplomatic Academy of Ukraine and former ambassador. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay tuned for more with UATV.